If that's your goal, then don't claim to be agile. Don't hire Scrum Masters. Set up a traditional PMO and deploy old-school project managers with Microsoft Project. The data shows that elite performing teams move fast and fix things. The software industry is currently operating in an era defined by rapid, pivot-heavy evolution. The widespread integration of AI and automated continuous delivery pipelines has altered the pace of code generation, yet the management structures attempting to harness this technological acceleration remain trapped in 20th century industrial thinking more than 2 decades into the 21st century. These legacy frameworks were originally designed for the factory floor, environments where human output was physical, repetitive, easily observable, and easily measured. The origins of Kanban can be traced back to Toyota and was adopted later in lean, agile frameworks for software development. But software engineering isn't a factory assembly line, obviously. It's a complex, adaptive, and highly non-linear system. The disconnect lies in management's assumption that optimal output can be dictated from the top down, while in modern development environments, the developers actually writing the code and interacting with the systems possess the most critical, up-to-date context. Management requires visibility, and in the absence of a true understanding of the complex software architecture, leaders inevitably turn to numbers that are easily counted, regardless of whether those numbers are strategically meaningful. You can see your velocity metric as an example. We can refer to this phenomenon as an illusion of control, and it's perfectly captured by a historical concept known as the McNamara Fallacy, named after Robert McNamara, the United States Secretary of Defense from 1961 to 1968. The fallacy describes a decision-making philosophy that defined the failure of the Vietnam War. McNamara, relying heavily on quantitative analysis, attempted to measure the success of the war through enemy body counts and munitions used. He completely ignored the qualitative, hard-to-measure realities such as enemy morale, political resolve, and the feelings of the rural population. The term McNamara fallacy was originally coined, as far as I can tell, in 1971 by Daniel Yankelevich, I think, in a paper titled The New Odds. The fallacy details a dangerous progression. First, measure whatever can be easily measured. Second, disregard what cannot be easily measured or assign it an arbitrary value. Third, presume that what cannot be easily measured isn't important. And finally, conclude that what cannot be easily measured simply does not exist. The if I can't see you, you're not there philosophy, common in 2-year-olds, I think. In modern software engineering, the McNamara fallacy manifests as a fixation on velocity, ticket counts, lines of code, and adherence to inflexible timelines. These metrics ignore the reality of complex software systems. We can also look at Goodhart's law, formulated by British economist Charles Goodhart in 1975. This law states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. And I'll say that again. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. When developers are evaluated primarily by the number of tickets they close, the system incentivizes them to break their work into artificially small, inconsequential tasks. And when productivity is measured by lines of code, the system rewards developers for writing verbose, perhaps fragile and overly complex software rather than elegant, efficient solutions. Industry experts point out that measuring individual developer output completely ignores the inherently collaborative nature of software engineering. By focusing entirely on localized effort rather than systemic impact, the framework incentivizes developers to optimize for their own personal metrics at the expense of the team. The illusion of control isn't a simple inefficiency, it's an actively destructive force within an organization. The demand for measurable output within a command and control system destroys psychological safety and eventually grinds all meaningful progress to a halt. This follows a highly predictable pattern, systematically transforming vibrant creative engineering cultures into silent, risk-averse feature factories. The first most insidious symptom of the command and control hierarchy is the rapid descent of the workforce into passive obedience. When organizational leaders prioritize adherence to roadmaps and localized productivity metrics over actual holistic results, the workforce adapts to survive the environment. The intrinsic motivation to solve complex systemic problems is replaced by a cynical, self-preserving desire to please the boss. If that's your goal, then don't claim to be agile. Don't hire Scrum Masters. Set up a traditional PMO and deploy old-school project managers with Microsoft Project. Then, in 6 months, survey your customers, see how that goes. Let me know in the comments. like and subscribe while you're at it. In an environment where questioning a top-down mandate is viewed as insubordination or a lack of team spirit, proactive problem-solving screeches to a halt. If an engineer foresees a catastrophic flaw in a feature, they will choose not to speak up if the organization has a history of punishing the messenger. This psychological shift from proactive engagement to passive compliance means that the organization loses the intelligence it spent millions of dollars hiring the engineers to provide. The hierarchy ultimately gets exactly what it wants: absolute, unquestioning obedience, utterly devoid of innovation or critical thought. This dynamic introduces a devastating organizational burden. We can refer to this phenomenon as a psychological safety deficit. The concept of psychological safety was pioneered by Professor of Leadership and Management at Harvard Business School, Amy Edmondson. In a landmark 1999 paper published in the Administrative Science Quarterly, Edmondson defined psychological safety as the shared belief that a team environment is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. It means that team members feel absolutely confident that no one on the team will embarrass, reject, or punish them for admitting a mistake, asking a basic question, or offering a dissenting idea. The absence of psychological safety drains emotional energy, slows down communication, and prevents system-critical information from reaching decision makers in time for them to make a strategic pivot. The scale of this impact was proven by Google's Project Aristotle. Beginning in 2012, Google's People Analytics team initiated a multi-year study of 180 teams to discover the empirical secrets of high performance. The researchers initially hypothesized that the most effective teams would be composed of a mix of elite individual performers, specific personality types, and highly experienced managers. After analyzing over 250 different team attributes, the data proved that their initial assumptions were wrong. Project Aristotle revealed that who was on the team mattered far less than how the team members interacted with one another. The researchers discovered that co-location, consensus-driven decision-making, extroversion, seniority, and individual performance metrics showed no significant consistent correlation with overall team effectiveness. Instead, the single most important dynamic, the foundational pillar that separated highly successful teams from failing ones, was psychological safety. Google identified 5 key dynamics of successful teams. First, psychological safety. Team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other without fear of embarrassment or punishment. Second, dependability. Team members reliably complete high-quality work on time, holding themselves accountable. Third, structure and clarity. An individual possesses a clear understanding of job expectations, execution plans, and the consequences of their performance. Fourth, meaning. Team members find a deep sense of personal purpose in either the work itself or the output being generated. And 5, impact. The subjective judgment that the work being done is actively making a difference and contributing to the organization's overarching goals. Google's data demonstrated that teams with high psychological safety were 19% more productive, generated 31% more innovations, and experienced 27% lower turnover than teams where psychological safety was absent. These high safety teams brought in significantly more revenue and were rated as highly effective by executives twice as often as low safety teams. In a high trust, psychologically safe environment, when a problem occurs, engineers raise the alarm, pivot, and fix the issue. But in an environment of low psychological safety, speaking up brings the threat of retribution. According to the Developer Coefficient Study conducted by Stripe and Harris Poll in 2018, which surveyed over 1,000 C-level executives and 1,000 developers across multiple countries, the average software developer spends 17.3 hours each week dealing with maintenance issues, debugging, refactoring, and modifying bad code. That's time not spent on building new features. Stripe estimates that this inefficiency equates to a loss of approximately $85 billion in opportunity cost and lost productivity globally annually. The solution is to build trust, transparency, and open communication. This requires a shift in the culture of the organization. The primary driver of the transition from a command and control environment to a context, not control environment. This philosophy, championed by Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings, inverts the traditional corporate management dynamic. The core premise is that if an organization hires highly capable, self-motivated people, leadership should provide them with all the necessary context and information and then get out of their way. Leading with context means that managers are expected to give their teams the full, unfiltered picture. including the overarching strategy, the financial numbers, the core reasoning behind the business decisions, and the realities of the market. Leadership defines the desired business outcome and the constraints, trusting the engineers to utilize their specialized expertise to find the optimal technical solution. Hastings argues that talent density increases within a team, meaning the concentration of highly skilled, high-performing individuals, and the need for restrictive policies dissipates, and the need for the team autonomy grows as that density increases. This creates a culture that Netflix dubbed freedom and responsibility. In this culture, radical candor and continuous honest feedback loops ensure that employees are accountable to one another. Teams adapt significantly faster, pivot more efficiently, and align their daily technical work directly with the strategic realities of the market. The manager's role becomes the active facilitation of radical transparency, information flow, and organizational health. This transformation in leadership philosophy is modeled by organizational culture typology developed by sociologist Dr. Ron Westrum. Dr. Westrum originally conducted his research studying human factors and system safety in high-complex, high-risk domains such as aviation and medical healthcare. He discovered that the way information flows through an organization is the strongest predictor of safety and success. Westrum categorized organizational cultures into three distinct typologies: pathological, bureaucratic, and generative. The DevOps Research and Assessment, or DORA, reports have since heavily utilized Westrum's model. On screen, I'm putting a table of the typologies and the characteristics of each as I talk through them. Cooperation increases as we progress from pathological through bureaucratic and into generative. Messengers are trained in the generative typology, neglected in the bureaucratic one, and punished in the pathological typology. Bridging or cross-functional work is actively discouraged in pathological and only tolerated in the bureaucratic typology, whereas it's encouraged in the generative typology. And finally, reactions to failure and novelty across bureaucratic and pathological typologies are suppressive and are actually implemented in the generative typology. Pathological cultures are driven by fear and personal power. In these environments, messengers who bring bad news are actively punished, and failure inevitably leads to the hunting of a scapegoat. Bureaucratic cultures are obsessed with protecting the departmental turf and enforcing rigid rules, resulting in neglected messengers and a deep resistance to novelty. A generative culture is a performance-oriented culture. In this environment, there is cross-functional cooperation, risks are shared across the team, bridging between different departments is actively encouraged, and most importantly, messengers who bring bad news are rewarded. Managers need to view their primary role as clearing roadblocks, fostering psychological safety, and cultivating the unimpeded flow of information. Innovation requires experimentation, and experimentation guarantees that some attempts will fail. If an engineering team operates in an environment where failure is met with a punitive action or a public shaming, they will stop experimenting and innovation will stall. When failure is treated as a high-value learning opportunity, the entire organization can learn and fix the mistake. This shared, blameless ownership of both successes and failures creates an environment where taking calculated interpersonal and technical risks is rewarded. It is in this type of environment that the most resilient, innovative, and highly scalable software is written. When an organization successfully executes the transition, the transformation and end result is an incredibly fast, highly adaptable, and intensely human-centric engineering culture, one capable of delivering continuous compounding value to the customer. The vision is one where deep, localized autonomy seamlessly coexists with rigorous organizational alignment. In this human-centric delivery model, micromanagement is rendered not just unnecessary, but actively harmful. When teams are given the autonomy to self-direct their technical implementations while remaining tightly aligned with the company's broader strategic goals, then everybody wins. Organizations that empower their teams don't have to make trade-offs between moving fast and making reliable systems. The data shows that elite performing teams move fast and fix things things. As the landscape of software development continues to undergo massive shifts, particularly with the rapid integration of AI coding assistants, the rules of governance must also evolve. AI is rapidly changing the nature of engineering. The new bottleneck is the ability to review, validate, and safely integrate the massive volume of code being generated. The 2024 DORA report highlighted this challenge. While AI adoption obviously increases the speed at which code is generated, the research revealed that heavy AI adoption was actually correlated with a 1.5% decrease in estimated delivery throughput and a 7.2% decrease in delivery stability. The bottleneck is simply shifted further to the right in the software development lifecycle, choking the review pipelines and the testing pipelines. The technology industry faces an unprecedented escalating demand for highly skilled talent. Despite what news headlines might have you believe, high-quality software engineers have become one of the global economy's most precious and contested resources. Organizations that successfully foster psychological safety see massive compounding returns in employee retention and deep engagement. Employees operating in psychologically safe environments are less likely to quit, reducing the financial and operational burden of turnover. These empowered teams exhibit higher loyalty, massively lower burnout rates, and ultimately significantly higher profitability. By trusting engineers, providing deep strategic context, ensuring psychological safety, and not punishing failure, leadership unlocks the full, unbridled cognitive potential of their teams. If you found this video valuable, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. That's all for today. Until next time, thanks and take care.